I know that the credit or the home market right now sucks. Inventory's low, interest rates are high, according to what most people are used to. But the reality is that you can focus on that, or else you can focus on getting yourself prepared so that when the pricing and everything does what you want it to do, you're ready to go ahead and buy. Right. And today I'm going to go ahead and answer some of the questions that were on my posts that I didn't know were there. If you're new here, my name is Shannon. I specialize in helping credit challenged individuals overcome issues that prevent home ownership. So right now, what we're focusing on is credit, and more credit. So I'm going to be answering 6 different questions I had here, and however many other questions you guys have while you're here. And so I'm not one to hype up the funk and all that. So we're going to go ahead and get started with the questions. So if I increase my credit, can I get more house? This is one of the questions that I get all the time, and this is one of the questions from one of my videos. If you increase your credit score, can you get more house? No. I know that sucks. It sucks with a capital S. But the reality is that your credit scores help qualify you for the house. Your income and your debt to income determines how much house you can get. So increasing your credit score is not going to increase the amount of house you can get, just like paying off your car isn't necessarily going to increase the amount of house that you can get. The reason being is because your credit score is what qualifies you. Your debt to income and your income is what determines how much house. Okay. So ideally you want your debt to be less than half of what your income is. Okay. So that's the benchmark. Like people will be like, oh, how much debt can I have? Less than half of your income. And that's how they'll determine how much house you can get. There's something called front end and back end ratios. So there's little percentages that they do to help determine that. Those of you who don't know, I'm a licensed realtor in the state of Delaware, and I also owned a successful credit repair company for 8 years. I recently decided that I want to teach a man how to fish, and I'm just going to teach you how to fix your credit and what you need to know so that you can successfully become a homeowner. So the goal is to help you get prepared for home ownership and to overcome the things that prevent home ownership. The next question is, I have low credit, I have high income or high savings. What can I do? If I had low credit and I had high income and I couldn't pay cash for a house, then I would focus on the things that I need to do to improve my credit. You can benefit from having a higher credit score and trying to purchase a house than you can benefit from having more cash. I tell people this all the time. If you have cash, because people will be like, oh, well, I'm just going to take the cash and I'm going to buy down the rate. Well, you can buy down your rate, but your points are going to be 1% of the purchase price. So for those who don't know what points are, points is where you can take it's 1%. 1% of the purchase price of a home. And you would have to put that much down in order to buy down your rate. It's not always worth it when you can take a few months and work on building your credit score. And then if you get a credit score in the 700s, you can get a credit score of 680. You know what I mean? And you can do that, and that'll help you do what you need to do with your credit score so that you can qualify for a home better than paying $3,000 or $4,000 per point just to buy down the rate. It doesn't make sense. Some people only have $20, $30 little things on their credit report. If I had to work on that, that's what I would do. I would work on focusing on getting my credit score together. Any collections that I have that are past due, bringing them current. Setting up payment plans for what I knew I couldn't delete off for dispute. Making sure that I'm using a budget. I would put the money towards improving my credit score. Your credit score will take you places cash can't. And I'm not here to be like, oh, finance everything. I'm not saying that. But you also need to understand how to use your credit as a tool. I would much rather a client come to me and use their money to make their home what they want, as opposed to using their money to pay off a bunch of collections that they could get disputed off because the collection company doesn't have a right to collect in their state. Or I would rather them use that money to personalize the house that they're about to buy, because maybe they couldn't get the brand new pristine home, but this house has a nice footprint and they could do paint and new flooring and make it what they want. Or they can upgrade the bathroom and make it what they want. Light fixtures are easy to replace. It's $100. I don't ever get a client that comes to me and I'm like, I want you to use all your money that you have saved to go towards the home. And the reason being is because when you move into the home, no matter if you build it brand new or not, there's things that you're going to want to do in there. I don't care what you say and or do. You feel what I'm saying? So there's that. So I would take the money and focus on fixing my credit or whatever issues it is that's preventing me from home ownership. And then I would increase my credit to a point, maybe like a 680, 700, so that I could qualify for programs, especially if I was a first time home buyer. I would definitely be qualifying for first time home buyer programs. There are programs all across the world. If you guys know, you got programs like NACA. I remember one time I had a lady on here who was asking me about improving her credit. NACA don't care anything about your credit. So depending on the housing program that you're going for, you need to make the determination. But most first-time home buyer programs are going to give you money for closing costs and or closing cost assistance after a 640. All right, that's that. If you guys don't understand what I'm saying, please drop your questions below so I can answer. So the next question that I have on here from everybody who's been asking me questions is credit unions and FHA qualifications. So let's briefly talk about FHA. For those who don't know, FHA stands for Fair Housing Administration. Okay. One of the homebuyer programs that a lot of first-time homebuyer programs qualify for when they don't have super great credit is going to be the FHA loan. Shannon, why? Because FHA is backed by the government. They overlook more of your credit issues. That's the loan that you can qualify for with a 500 credit score. If you ever seen the video where I'm like, you can qualify for credit with 500 credit score, 580 if you know, are willing to work on your credit. Well, you need 10% down if you're going to do that 500. But the thing is you have to be mindful of your area. If starter homes in your area are $400,000, 10% is going to be $40,000. Do you have $40,000? If you have $40,000, you shouldn't have a 500 credit score. Unless, of course, and let me roll that back. Unless, of course, you're a person who doesn't want to do anything with credit. There are some people who don't desire to do anything with credit, so they have poor credit scores. The only way that you're going to have credit is if you're working on it and if you're building it. If you like what I'm saying, make sure that you like this, you share it, and that you follow me. You can click the link in my bio if you need a download on how you can build your credit quickly. All right. So that's FHA loans. So that's one loan type. They overlook more of your credit issues. Like you can have negative reporting as old as 60 days. Meaning as long as you haven't had any negative reporting in 60 days, they will approve you for a loan. Okay? And if all your other stuff, makes sense. So, credit unions. When I was a housing counselor, I did not like credit unions for home loans. I'm just keeping it real with y'all. I didn't like credit unions for home loans when I was a credit counselor because if a person fell short or if they needed help, and you have to be mindful. I was a housing counselor from 2012 or maybe 2000. Nope, run that back. 2011 to 2014. And the reason why I didn't care for the credit unions is anytime we had to go to mediation, they weren't willing to help the people who fell behind on their mortgage due to the housing market, meaning people bought houses when they were high and then they needed help and the credit union wouldn't work with them. But the credit union wouldn't work with them because credit unions are member owned. I like credit unions because they're second chance banks. I like credit unions because they typically have an easier barrier for entry. I like credit unions because they'll overlook if you have blemish. However, because credit unions are member owned, okay, they're not going to give as much of a pass as maybe some of the other banks might do, like the big banks. We have to be mindful. Banks like Bank of America, Chase, Wells Fargo, a lot of those banks, they have bigger investor pools. So they service a lot of loans, meaning they don't necessarily hold the monies, but they make sure that the payment gets collected from the mortgage. Is 550 good for your credit score, or should it be higher? It should definitely be higher. And you have to understand that you want your credit score to be specific to what it is that you're trying to achieve. So that's the thing with credit unions. So credit unions aren't bad for FHA, but you want to see if they have any in-house programs that might work for what it is that you're trying to do. The next question. Repos and home buying. Can you purchase a home with a repo? So, yes, you can purchase a home with a repossession. Does everybody understand what debt to income is? So when you're trying to qualify for a house, the lender is going to look at your total debt compared to the income that you have. They want to make sure that your stuff is on the up and up. Debt to income is the amount of debt that you have compared to your income. Now, when you're looking at the debt, they're considering your minimum debt payment compared to your gross pay. So when they qualify you for a mortgage, they're qualifying you based off what your pay is before taxes. They don't care about what you bring home. They're going to take your minimum debt payment compared to your income. And when they do that, they're looking for a certain ratio. So your total debt has to be less than 50% of your total income. All right. And then they determine your house amount based off of 30% of your debt load. And that's how they determine how much house you can get. So a lot of times, as I was saying earlier, I get people who are like, oh, well, what if I just increase my credit score? It doesn't matter if you increase your credit score. They're still not going to give you more money. So your credit score is what qualifies you for the house, but how much money you make is what's going to determine how much house you qualify for. Now, if you are in the position where they're like, or you might have even been qualified for a house and they're like, oh, you can't get a lot of house, then what you might want to do is reduce your debt load. Now, oftentimes you want to pay down your debt if you want to qualify for more house. All right. Now, I will say this. I would not pay off my car. If I had money saved, what I wouldn't do is I wouldn't take it and pay off my car if my car had less than like 9 months on it, because they're already not going to count your car against your qualification as a home buyer. So hopefully that helps, clear some things up if you guys have been on the fence. And like I said, I'm not here to convince you to buy a house. If you want to buy a house, buy a house. If you're fine with the interest rates, you're fine with the interest rates. If you can find a house that works for what you pay and what you can afford, then go for it. I'm not here to convince you that. What I'm here to help you do is to understand how you can make sure that you can qualify for a house if that's something that you feel like you want to do. Because some people don't care nothing about the interest rate. Drove past an apartment complex on the way back from breakfast yesterday. Me and my husband. 1 bedroom was $1,500. A 1 bedroom? My mortgage isn't even that much. So it's easy for people to come up and say, oh, the housing market sucks right now. I'm not trying to buy a house. Well, you have to figure out why you don't want to buy a house. And if that feels good to you, then go with it. But if you're making that as a reason because you have a limited belief or you have convinced yourself that you don't want to have to worry about the frustration of not being approved or what you think is not being approved, then that's a completely different thing. You feel what I'm saying? So that's a mindset shift that needs to take place. Because the thing is this too, I tell people all the time, I don't care if you can qualify for a house, can you keep it? Because the worst thing as a realtor, we don't want to have to list your house again because you couldn't keep it. I'm just keeping it 100 with you. If you guys have been scrolling, I don't know who to ask, I don't know what to do, then I'm the person that you need to ask. Because I have 14 plus years of housing experience. I was a housing counselor for 3 years, a HUD-approved housing counselor. Okay, I worked as a housing counseling agency doing that, specialized in first-time home buyers. I did foreclosure prevention, but I just really took to first-time home buyers. Prior to that, I worked in property management. I worked my way up from sales all the way up to a property manager. I did it for regular property as well as student-based housing at a HBCU, University of Maryland, okay, Eastern Shore. I went to Delaware State. Hornets, okay? Should have been a Hornet. That's what I tell everybody, okay? But, I did that. I worked my way up. And then from there, I segued over to being a housing counselor. From there, I became a realtor. And I opened up my own credit repair company because when I first started, it was more like credit counseling because I didn't want to be like sleazy. You know what I mean? How you can get people who just want to sell you something and it's about the money thing. You know what I mean? I wanted to do things the right way. I wanted to be able to help people overcome credit challenges so they could become home buyers. I wanted to help people so they didn't have to go through what we went through. I didn't want anybody to be homeless trying to figure out what to do with a house full of kids and being a young family. Nobody wants to go through that. That is the purpose behind what I did. The last question that I had, because I pulled some questions from off of videos that I had, and if you're not familiar, you can go over to my page and you can just see we focus straight on credit and housing. That's what we're here to do, because I believe that home ownership is for anybody who's willing to do the work. Everybody, but if it's not for you, it's not for you. And if home ownership isn't for you, that's fine. We still teach you how to improve your credit. We teach you how to fix your credit like a credit repair company would do. But the difference is we're not hiding anything. We're not hiding anything from you while we're teaching it to you. Okay. And that's actually a class that we're gearing up for. I'm still trying to determine if I want to do it in December or January. I don't know, but it is going to happen. It's happening because I've been building the class out. So it's definitely happening. So this last question I have here, in order for you to purchase a house, it has to be over $50,000. You can't finance a house with a mortgage under $50,000. They have caps and limits. So that's something to be considerate of. If you're going to do something, if you're trying to get like an investment property or something, sometimes people look at hard money lenders. It just really depends on what the goal is. So one thing for me that I tell people all the time is you want to understand your goal and you want to focus on that goal. If whatever you're trying to do and the things that come across your path are not working you towards that goal, then you might need to let it go. Okay? If you guys are liking what I'm saying, make sure that you follow me. Click the link in my bio. You can download my first. Thank you guys so much for joining me. As I said, my name is Shannon. I'm a realtor in the state of Delaware. I focus on helping people overcome barriers that prevent home ownership, specifically personal finance and credit. My goal is to help you become a homeowner because I believe home ownership is for anybody who's willing to do the work. Oh, there we go. There's a question. All right. What is the option for having a second mortgage? So that's a good question. And I'm going to kind of take this a little bit differently. A lot of times when you qualify for a first-time homebuyer program, it's going to be through a second mortgage. So you have your main mortgage, and when I say main, I mean the one that's in first position. So let's say you buy a house that's $100,000. We just doing easy math here, okay? You buy a house for $100,000 with Bank of America. You qualify for a home buyer program. The home buyer program might come or might be serviced by a second bank of U.S. bank. The primary mortgage, which is the first mortgage, is in first position, which is the thing that bought the house, and the second mortgage, oftentimes, is going to be the home buyer program. Now, if you didn't utilize a home buyer program to get a house, a second mortgage is just going to be a mortgage that sits in second position. Meaning you either have to pay that after the first one, which is what we call a silent second mortgage. And if I'm going too fast for you guys, let me know because I don't know unless you tell me. Which is what we call a silent second mortgage, meaning that second mortgage doesn't have to be paid until that first one is paid off, or it is paid at the same time as the first one. So you'll have the first mortgage where you make a mortgage payment, and then you'll have that second one where you make a mortgage payment. Now, I tell people if you're going to have a silent second mortgage, if it has a 0% interest rate, then you just let it do what it do and you pay it off when you're done with that first one. Second silent mortgage is a second mortgage. It's silent, meaning it's not paid at the same time as the first mortgage. It's not due at the same time as the first mortgage. Does that make sense? So I say if you have a silent second mortgage because you took a home loan or like a home buyer assistance program, I would only focus on paying that if it had interest. Now, depending on when you buy, some home buyer program assistance programs come in the form of a loan. Okay, that's why I said it's a second mortgage. And it's silent. But silent doesn't mean that it doesn't have interest. It just means that it doesn't have to be paid at the same time as the first one. It has been a pleasure getting to know you guys. Atong, I think that's how you say your name. Britt, thank you guys for joining me. You guys have a fantabulous evening. My name is Shannon. I specialize in helping credit challenged individuals overcome issues that prevent home ownership. But thank you so much for being here. You guys be safe and enjoy your night.